Hi everyone. We'll be waiting 2 to 3 minutes before starting the webinar to accommodate for the rest of the attendees who are in the middle of connecting.
Hey guys.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Valon Kolika and I will be your host for today. Thank you for your participation and let's go over a few reminders before we start with the presentation. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that.
Sorry to interrupt. I am seeing pre-live in my screen. Did we go live?
It's my screen right now is just frozen, but I do see pre-live at the very top left top corner as you are, Camilla.
So do I. I'll check from an attendee view real quick and let you know what I see. I would say we should probably keep going in case we are live, and then if not, I'll come back as quickly as I can and let us know, and we'll see what we can do from there.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Some technical difficulties, I apologize about that. So let's just, yep, folks are saying we are live, so that's great. Thank you for your help, folks. Okay, So please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. Now, closed captions are available during the live broadcast, and you can enable it by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. And during this time, please feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window. You can also click on the Ask Question button, and be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. Now, we often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event, if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Azure Network Security forum at aka.ms/Azure Network Security Community. If you're listening to this after the fact as a recording, that's also a great place to ask a question. Now, we love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/security-webinar feedback. And while you're there, please join our community by visiting aka.ms/security community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews, which you can sign up for at aka.ms/security private preview. And while you're there, you can request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, attend in-person events, hopefully to come soon, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you join us. In today's session, Mohit will guide us on how to protect the web apps using Azure Web Application Firewall. Mohit Kumar is a senior program manager with our Azure Network Security team. And without further ado, I will turn it over to him. Mohit, the floor is yours.
Hey, Valen, appreciate the intro and setting the groundwork. Hello, everyone. Good morning and a good evening if you're not in the US. My name is Mohit Kumar, and I'm a senior program manager on the Azure Network Security Customer Experience Engineering team. My team's area of focus are security products like Azure DDoS Protection, Azure Firewall, and Azure Web Application Firewall. Our goal, as Valen so eloquently mentioned, is to improve experience of our customers with these products, remove any blockers that you may have in adoption and taking full advantage of these products. My team also assists our customers, such as yourself, in doing proof of concept deployments. Today, we are here to dive deeper and take a deeper look at the Azure Web Application Firewall and its capabilities. So here's our agenda for today. We'll first review the key features of Azure WAF, then go over the various flavors of WAF, and then get a bit deeper into the internals with the Web Application Firewall policies, rule sets, and operations. But first, let's review the key features of Azure WAF. As you may already be familiar, a lot of you may already be familiar with this. Azure WAF is an enterprise-grade web protection or web application protection for your applications, whether they're delivered through Azure or from outside of Azure, whether on-prem or through other cloud services. Azure WAF is compliant with 14 different compliance standards, including but not only limited to PCI, DSS, HIPAA, BA, SOC, and ISO. And when deployed with Azure Application Gateway or Azure Front Door, Azure WAF is highly available. It auto-scales when additional resources are needed to serve traffic and protects against OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities with its out-of-box rule set without any additional configuration. Azure WAF is integrated with both Azure Front Door, Azure CDN, and Application Gateway. When combined with global services like Azure Front Door and CDN, which provide application and content acceleration with regional load balancing. Azure WAF can detect and protect against attacks against your web applications at the very edge of the network. And when combined with a regional load balancing solution like Application Gateway, which provides VNet or resource level application load balancing, Azure WAF detects and protects against attacks against both publicly available and your private web applications. Both Azure Front Door and Application Gateway can publish web applications hosted either in Azure or out of Azure, whether they are in on-prem or another cloud service, as long as they have a public IP. Now, this is an overview of the WAF, and we'll go into the different flavors of the WAF. But before we do, let's take a few minutes to review the key security and manageability features of the Azure WAF itself. So on this slide, starting from the top with the out-of-box protection against OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities with pre-configured web application protection rule set, which comes from Mod Security. Number two, Azure WAF also provides protection against malicious botnets, which may be used to attack your web applications. One such example would be using botnets to perform brute force attacks or credential stuffing attack against your applications. The botnet IPs are updated with the best of the breed Microsoft Threat Intelligence feed, which is updated every hour. You're also able to create rate limiting rules based on various conditions in Azure Front Door. And this protects your backend resources from common protocol and resource attacks. And on top of all of this, our versatile custom rule engine allows you to create more granular allow, deny, redirect, and log rules to protect your application and resources, and allow for customization of how you handle specific requests. And then all WAF operations and metrics are logged and can be retained in log analytics, analyzed with Azure Monitor, and can be integrated with Azure Sentinel via the connectors. And most importantly, all the administration and configuration that can be for Azure WAF can be performed either from the Azure portal or with ARM templates or Terraform or PowerShell or Azure command line interfaces. Now, with an all-up understanding of Azure WAF features, let's now dive into integration of WAF with Application Gateway, Azure Front Door, and CDN products in the next few slides. So first up is the Application Gateway service. Let's go over some of the key features of the Application Gateway service, where V2 is the current version. V2 has a number of improvements and advantages over the V1 SKU. This is because V2 has carried over the great load balancing and application firewall integration features from V1, and then added a number of enhancements. And most notable of those enhancements are auto scaling and zone redundancy for availability, custom rules for enhanced tuning, header rewrites for more customization and security, and to top all of this up, 5 times better TLS offload performance over V1. So needless to say, V2 is a great enhancement over V1, and we encourage all our customers to adopt V2 as in case of new deployments. And then you add WAF to this platform. And when you do, this platform is capable of protecting against common web application vulnerabilities as defined by the OWASP, which basically stands for Open Web Application Security Project, which is a standard and defines the common web application vulnerabilities which may be exploited by an attacker and should be protected right in the design and development phases. And when you implement WAF for your web applications, the WAF is able to protect against these common web application vulnerabilities with its out-of-box rule set, which comes from Mod Security. The WAF also protects against malicious bots, which could be used to attack your web applications. And then this is done with the IP reputation feed from Microsoft Threat Intelligence. The core rule set from Mod Security is periodically updated to protect against evolving threats against web applications in general, and so is the IP reputation threat intelligence for bot protection, which is updated several times a day. And to take the security to the next level and to allow additional customization needed for a wide variety of web application design, Azure WAF allows admins to select different actions for their core rule sets. For example, you could take a core rule or a managed rule in Azure WAF and choose to decide what you want to do with that rule. You could choose to allow, block, log, and take different types of actions. There are exclusion lists also available in Azure WAF, which allow for skipping inspection of specific attributes in the client request at a global level. You can also create custom rules in WAF to allow specific values through the WAF, which may otherwise be blocked because they may be seen as a malicious pattern. And with application gateway and WAF, you can publish and secure web applications, whether they are in your internal VNets in Azure or they are based on backend pools which reside in your on-prem network. If an application has a public IP, you can publish and secure it with application gateway WAF, regardless of where it's located, whether it's in Azure, in other cloud service like AWS or GCP, or in your on-prem. And you're able to use the robust and familiar Azure Diagnostic Logging framework with Azure Monitor for near real-time monitoring and alerting. Azure Sentinel workbooks can be used to better understand the logs and create custom response and remediation logic to meet your business needs. The V1 version of Application Gateway currently integrates with Azure Security Center and provides both recommendations and alerts. We continue to work on producing a better integration story for the V2 version. And all of this is available in the highly available and auto-scaling Application Gateway platform. Okay, so let's talk about Front Door first. So Front Door is a global applicant acceleration and delivery service in Azure. Front Door provides global routing and regional load balancing for your web applications. And when deployed with WAF or Web Application Firewall, Front Door is able to detect and prevent attack against your web applications at the global edge versus the alternative, which is having these threats traverse through the entire Azure network to your regional resources, where they may either be blocked if you have the right security controls in place, or they may get executed. So you don't want to take that chance, and you always want to block all these threats at the network edge. You can also create rate limits or request thresholds, and even customize those granularly to protect your application and backend resources against layer 7 attacks like request floods. And then Azure WAF on Front Door comes with the same robust rule set, which helps prevent exploitation of common web application vulnerabilities. The broad protection rule set protects against all sorts of attacks from malicious IPs based on Microsoft Threat Intelligence. And since Front Door is a global resource, it can be used to load balance web application traffic between different regions in Azure. The regional resources could be web servers on which may be virtual machines. They could be app service. It could be Azure Kubernetes service or application gateways deployed per region. You can also lock down your backend services in Azure to only accept traffic and respond to the Azure Front Door based on service tags. In addition to all of this, just like Application Gateway can, Azure Front Door is also capable of publishing and securing web applications, regardless of whether they're hosted, as long as they have a public IP. So the application could be in your internal Azure regions. They could be hosted on-prem, or they could be in another cloud service. You're also able to get global insights for your application traffic and usage with the Azure Front Door logs and Azure Monitor and Sentinel workbooks. And again, all of this is bundled with the highly scalable, available, and low latency Azure Front Door service. Okay, so we've talked about Application Gateway and WAF. We've talked about Azure Front Door and WAF, and now we'll talk about the third flavor of WAF, which integrates with CDN. So Azure CDN is a global solution for delivering high bandwidth content. CDN is basically a distributed network of servers that can efficiently deliver web content to users from the point of present location that is closest to those end users. And this is done with the intent to minimize latency. Azure CDN can cache and serve static objects, which may be loaded from Azure Blob Storage or from a web application. Azure CDN also provides delivery acceleration for dynamic content with network and routing optimizations, because dynamic content may not be, cannot be cached. And in this case, also, the source can be in Azure, or it could be any other location like an on-prem resource or a publicly available web server, publicly accessible web servers. So let's take a look at Azure WAF with CDN. Azure WAF with CDN also uses the Azure managed rule set to detect and protect against attack at the Azure network edge. You have the same ability to create custom rules to allow application-specific traffic, which may otherwise would be seen by WAF as malicious and be blocked. Azure WAF policy can be applied to multiple CDN endpoints. You can configure WAF for CDN through either Azure Portal or REST APIs or PowerShell or Azure CLI interfaces. Azure WAF for CDN is currently in public preview and does not support bot protection. As with other WAFs, CDN WAF is also integrated with Azure Monitor to query traffic and track alerts. Okay, so let's quickly recap. At the beginning of this discussion, we recapped the key features of Azure WAF, and then we looked at the integration of Azure WAF with the 3 different platforms: Azure Application Gateway, Azure Front Door, and Azure CDN. And now we'll take a step deeper. We'll dive a little bit deeper and demystify, or try to attempt to demystify WAF policies. Okay. So before we talk about WAF policies, let's understand what a WAF policy really is. A WAF policy is basically a collection of settings and configuration information consumed by the Web Application Firewall. You can create a WAF policy from the WAF policy blade in the Azure portal. The big pieces of WAF policy include what kind of WAF policy it is, whether it's a front door policy, application gateway, or CDN policy, whether the policy is in prevention or detection mode, whether there are any exclusions, global parameters, what version of managed rules are enabled in a specific WAF policy, and if there are any custom rules in there. And once you create a WAF policy, you can apply it at as a global policy to an application gateway, Azure Front Door, or a CDN. These global policies will apply to every site protected by the WAF. Additionally, when it comes to application gateway, you have a little more granularity in terms of at what level you apply the WAF policy. So outside of applying the WAF policy to the application gateway at a global level, you can also apply the different WAF policies per site or at a per URI level. Both of these features in application gateway to allow you to apply WAF policy at a per site and per URI level, or currently in public preview. Per URI WAF policies applied to path-based rules. Also, a single WAF policy can be applied to multiple application gateways. Okay, so on this slide, we have differentiated between what a WAF config versus a WAF policy gives you. Now, when WAF is created as a function of application gateway deployment and not specifically created from the WAF policy blade, it's called a WAF config or WAF config. The main thing to know about WAF config is that it is specific to one application gateway and cannot be applied to other or multiple application gateways. This slide summarizes the differences between the WAF config and WAF policies. And as you can see, WAF policy has more features than WAF config. Most notably, the WAF config lacks bot protection and geolocation. Also, WAF config cannot be applied at a per site or a per URI level. Okay, so we have looked at the WAF policies, and now we will take a step deeper and try to demystify the different WAF rule sets. Um, So, and before we start on this topic, there are three primary type of rule sets that WAF has. There are managed rules, and then there are bot protection rules, and then there are the custom rules. We will go over these three categories of rules for first with application gateway, then with front door, and then for the CDN. So let's first go over the managed rules that we have for application gateway WAF. These rule sets are managed by Azure, which means you can select from the different versions of these rule sets which are currently available. This Azure managed rule set is based on the core rule set from Mod Security. There are three versions of it available today, with 3.1 being the current version. The core rule set is designed to protect your web applications from, again, common web application vulnerabilities as outlined by the OWASP Top 10 application security standard. So with these out-of-box rules, Azure WAF is able to protect against attacks like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, command injection, and is also able to detect anomalies in HTTP protocol request patterns, which can help detect and protect against malicious bots, undesirable crawlers, and scanners. The WAF can also protect against vulnerabilities caused by common application misconfiguration. And then the bot protection rule set, which is currently in public preview, can be used along with the core rule set to detect and protect against traffic from malicious IPs associated with botnets. The bot protection rule set is updated with the list of malicious IP addresses from IP addresses from Microsoft Threat Intelligence feed. The bot protection on application gateway only detects bad bots today. And then the third type of rule set that we have in the application gateway WAF is the custom rule. These are the rules which are defined by the users. And the intent here of defining the rules is to take specific actions per request which match a defined set of conditions. The custom rules can broadly be divided into two types of rules in the application gateway WAF. The first one is called a match rule, where you evaluate the values in predefined server variables to take a desired action. These match rules can be defined based on client IP address, or you can look at a number or string match in the request body or request method, or a query string or an argument. The second type of rule is a geo-match rule, which can be used to restrict access to your application based on the source country or the region. Okay, so we looked at the three different types of rule sets we have in the application gateway, and we'll now do the same thing for the front door. So again, in front door, the core rule set or the managed rules are or managed rule set is managed by Azure. The default rule set 1.0 is the current version and is based on the same core rule set 3.1, which is used in the application gateway. However, the WAF rule set in front door is a more tuned version of CRS 3.1 and intended to reduce false positive. It's also less noisy than its application gateway counterpart. The default rule set is designed to protect against your web applications against common web application vulnerabilities, again outlined by OWASP Top 10. And so with these out-of-box rules, Azure WAF is able to protect against attacks like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, local file inclusion, remote file inclusion, and command injection, etc. Okay, and then the bot rule set in front door, which is currently in public preview, but it's more mature than the bot protection we have in application gateway. The bot protection feature in front door can differentiate between good, bad, and unknown bots. For example, good bots will include validated search engines, etc. Bad bots are the malicious bots, which are known to be attacking or performing malicious actions out in the wild. And then there are unknown bots, which are the ones which require additional validation. You can configure custom rules to allow to block, allow, log, or redirect for different types of bots. This bot protection is also based on the threat intelligence suite, which comes from Microsoft and is updated every hour. And then the last type of rule set we have in the front door WAF is also the custom rules. These rules are, again, the ones which are defined by users. And the intent here is to take specific or let WAF take specific actions for requests which match a defined criteria or set of conditions. The custom rules here can be broadly divided into two types. The first one is called a match rule, where you, again, evaluate the values in predefined server variables to take the desired actions. These match rules can be defined based on client IP address, and you can, again, do number of string matches in request method. The second type of rule here is called the rate limiting rule, where you can define the threshold for number of requests that should be accepted by WAF within a defined time duration, which is either 1 or 5 minutes. Rate limit rules can be combined with match rules to add more complex conditions to evaluate before taking a desired action, whether you want to block, allow, redirect a request. Okay, so we've looked at the three rule sets for application gateway WAF and then the front door WAF, and now we're going to do the same for CDN WAF. So CDN WAF also comes with a pre-configured rule set, which is also based on the OWASP Top 10, and we're trying to prevent those common web application vulnerabilities. And it also protects against attacks like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, command injection. The key thing here is that Azure WAF for CDN currently does not support bot protection. And then custom rules. So with the Azure WAF for CDN, you have the we have a very similar approach to custom rules as we have in the front door. The custom rules here can be classified again in two categories: match rules and rate limit rules, and they work exactly how they work in the front door. The match rules allow you to evaluate values in predefined server variables and take desired actions, and rate limit rules allow you to define the request threshold and then combine them with match rules for more complex logic before just taking a desired action. Okay, so let's recap. We went over the key features of Azure WAF and then looked at the Azure WAF capabilities when it's interfaced with different platforms like Application Gateway, Front Door, and CDN. Then we took a dive into WAF policies, and then dove a little bit even deeper into WAF rule sets for different platforms. So now we'll all come up for air and go over the last section of this presentation, which goes into the operational aspects of WAF, including configuration, tuning, logging, and insights. And first up, we'll talk about WAF configurability. Now, Azure WAF can be configured to take there are several toggles that can be configured for Azure WAF during and post deployment. And they allow you to choose to run Azure WAF in either prevention or detection mode. You can also enable or disable managed rules or entire rule sets. And this is generally done with the intention of removing false positives to make web applications work correctly. You can also enable or disable exclusion list, with which you can exclude inspection of specific request attributes or headers. You can also configure other global parameters such as enable, disable request body inspection, and then take it a step deeper by further defining max request body size that should be accepted by the WAF and max file upload size that should be allowed through the WAF. And then a very interesting topic that we talk about with customers all the time is WAF tuning. And specifically when it comes to making different types of web applications work through WAF tuning your WAF is important. We encourage customers to look at the application design and WAF logging to identify and eliminate false positives, either with exclusions or custom rules. This is because every application is different and may require some sort of tuning of the WAF configuration. A good way of doing this is to use WAF in detection mode. And this will allow you to understand how WAF is handling traffic. Then you could look at the logs and identify where the false positives are being flagged in the logs. And then you could decide to use exclusion lists or custom rules, or even enable, disable, manage rule sets before you decide to move to production with prevention mode in WAF. And then diagnostic logging. Azure WAF generates diagnostic logs for Web Application Firewall operations. These near real-time logs can be used to detect and alert against attacks. These logs can be analyzed with Azure Monitor, Azure Sentinel workbooks, and also ingested by third-party SIEM or SOAR solutions. Diagnostic logging in Azure WAF is not enabled by default. It has to be enabled by the customer in order to generate and store logs. And then lastly, which is metrics and insights. You can look at metrics and insights for Azure WAF by querying data which is stored either in log analytics or in Azure storage. You can do this with Azure Monitor, with Azure Sentinel workbooks or third-party solutions. Azure WAF, the metrics and insight data in Azure WAF follows the same familiar and robust framework of Azure Diagnostics and gives you deep insights into how your Azure WAF is handling and processing the traffic. So with that, we've come to the end of this presentation. That's all we have for you today, folks. Thank you so much for joining and learning about Azure Web Application Firewall.
Thank you, Mohit. That was great. And before we wrap it up, I would like to give the folks opportunity to ask some questions, although lots of questions came in that the team is handling here via IM. But let me just share the poll EV link here. We should have the link in the announcements, and I will also share my screen now. And we'll give it some time for the folks to submit and until it shows.
Well, we're waiting for those questions to roll in. I think we've got one here that didn't get addressed. Any plans to bring some Sentinel correlation rules for WAF?
I can take that one if you don't want it, Mohit. So yes, absolutely there is. We are in active talks with a few teams within Microsoft Security to further enrich what we're doing between WAF and Sentinel. There's already a few integrations in place. We have a connector, we have a built-in workbook, and that there will be better both hunting queries and analytic templates so that you can build rules based on WAF data. Today we have a few things that are available in our GitHub as well as the Sentinel GitHub, and we'll definitely be enriching that in the future. And I'll add to that, if you have anything specific that you're looking for in terms of hunting or detection queries, feel free to raise those as GitHub issues, either on the network security GitHub or on Sentinel. We can take a look at those and help prioritize the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Anthony. And then we have more coming in on the screen here.
Yeah, so the question on the screen is, can we integrate WAF with the antivirus and vulnerability scanner? So that integration doesn't exist today, and we'd like to understand the use case that you have for integration. Please feel free to reach out to us, and we are happy to learn about your scenario and then take that up with the relevant groups in Microsoft.
Okay, and then the next one is, it's moving up. Okay, where to enable Azure Monitor, send the WAF matrix to monitor.
Yes, so this will be under the diagnostic logging for the Azure WAF. You would go into the diagnostic logging blade and enable the Web Application Firewall and Web Application Access Logs, and then send it to either Log Analytics or Event Hub or Azure Storage. The next question is, can we detect, prevent website defacement with WAF? Yes, we can. And so a majority of website defacement happens because of vulnerabilities in the existing applications. This could be because of, majorly because of injection abilities, or the ability of an attacker to inject malicious payload in the web applications when they're unprotected. When you put WAF in front of a web application, it is able to detect those malicious payloads and block them before they get injected into the application itself. You cannot modify the Azure managed rule set in Azure WAF. So when I say you cannot modify the rule set, what I mean there is that you cannot change the logic of the rule. You can choose to take different actions. So by default, if a rule blocks the traffic, you can choose to allow it or just log the traffic.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I think this is the one that Anthony just replied, right? The
Yes.
plans for Sentinel. Yeah. Okay, and then we have the next one.
I just answered this as well.
Okay.
And then this last one, can Azure WAF ingest results from a vulnerability scanner? This is an interesting one. There is no ingestion capability from WAF or in WAF. A web application vulnerability scanner would come up with vulnerabilities in a target web application. So I'm interested to learn about what use case we are specifically talking about here. What is it that we would ingest from the web application scanner? And how would we use that in WAF? So please feel free to connect with us and share your use case with us.
Okay, thank you. We have one more coming in. What's the best place for WAF in architecture to close the source of the destination? Or to the destination, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, ideally, it depends on what the application is. If it's a global application, which is served in different geos across the world, you ideally want that application to be served from the closest location to the end user. And for that, you would want to use something like Azure Front Door, which allows application acceleration at a global level. While there are scenarios where you may want to serve up the application closest to the destination, but nothing comes to mind just now.
Great, thank you, Mohit. And we have 3 more coming.
So any plans for Sentinel data connectors for Front Door WAF and CDN WAF? Anthony, do you have
Yes.
information? Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so those are all WAF types are now included in the connector that exists today in Sentinel for WAF. So it used to be day one when that connector was released with Sentinel, it only covered application gateway WAF, but we recently made a change to accommodate all WAF types, and we also added Sentinel connectors for both firewall and Azure DDoS protection standard.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay, well, this brings us to the end. Just wanted to bring up some reminders for the folks. If you would like to continue following us in these webinars, please visit aka.ms/security webinars. We have lots of them coming up, especially for the next 2 months here before the end of year. And in case we missed to answer your question, or if you have additional questions, you can visit us on our Azure Network Security forum at aka.ms/Azure Network Security Community. And I would like to close this webinar by thanking Mohit for an excellent presentation. I do need to apologize to the folks for the glitch we had at the beginning, but I think we got over that quickly. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answering the questions. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.